Hello and welcome to GameSack. The Turbo EverDrive Pro came out not too long ago, so I thought I'd share some of my idiotic thoughts on it so far. Now, this is a flash cart for your TurboGrafx 16, PC Engine, Core Graphics, Core Graphics 2, Super Graphics, Shuttle, LT, Turbo Express, Turbo Duo. Well, hold off on the Turbo Duo for a second. Anyway, it's $220 US, so it's not cheap, but it does offer some features that competing products don't. So, less blabbing and more Turbo EverDrive Pro. Check it out. The Turbo EverDrive Pro is a pretty big upgrade over the original Turbo EverDrive or the version 2 Turbo EverDrive which followed. Like the version 2, this one offers instant loading of TurboGrafx and PC Engine HuCard games, or Turbo Chip games if you prefer. But come on, let's be real, no one prefers Turbo Chip. It offers automatic region detection. That means you can put it in a US console or a Japanese console. There are no switches to select your region, it just works. I like that. The menu is typical for the EverDrive line of products, and by that I mean it's pretty simple. Honestly, that's fine, as I spend more time playing games than I do putzing around the menu. However, if you feel that your flash cart needs to make a statement every time you boot it up, you can add menu themes, and there are a few included. You can also build your own themes with the Windows PC and a program that Krikzz offers as a free download. Navigating the games in the menu is fast, just like you'd expect, and I appreciate how it boots right to the menu instead of a splash screen first. If you press select, you open up the sub-menu. In here, the first option is, well, options. Here you can toggle lots of stuff, and I'm not going to cover every single thing, most of it's self-explanatory. But going down to the in-game combo will let you set up your button combinations for your quick save and load states as well as accessing the in-game menu. That's right, finally there are save states on the TurboGrafx 16. If you use a quick save in a game, it automatically saves to slot 0. However, you actually have 98 save slots per game. If you access the in-game menu, you'll gain access to a few functions. If you press left or right, you can change the slot that you save in. Be sure to do this before you save, otherwise you'll overwrite the current slot. Save states don't work with every single game, and sometimes the audio can be a bit messed up when you load a state. But it usually fixes itself when a new screen or musical selection loads. Cheats are also supported. These are action replay-like codes that you can put in up to 16 per game. You can also describe them so that you know what they do. You only ever have to input them once, and you can turn them on or off as needed, even during gameplay thanks to the in-game menu. This is a great day for gamers without any skill like myself. I kid, I'm kidding, cheats can definitely be fun and quite useful when capturing gameplay footage. There's also a button on the Turbo EverDrive Pro itself to access the in-game menu, or you can simply have it reset right back to the EverDrive menu. But if you don't, Exit Game will take you to the EverDrive menu. I almost forgot. The big thing with the Turbo EverDrive Pro is that it can play CD games and you don't even need a CD-ROM. In fact, you'd better not have one. More on that in a bit. You can select which system card is the default by navigating to the BIOS folder in the menu and selecting it. The loading time isn't much faster than a real CD system. Also, save states unfortunately do not currently work for CD games. Cheats work, but you can only access the in-game menu on the CD games by pressing the button on the Turbo EverDrive Pro itself. As you may recall from my reviews of the competing Terra Onion PC Engine and TurboGrafx products, they make the Sherlock Holmes games unplayable because the video runs too fast and the audio gets out of sync, and it even often crashes the video.
It is also quite old and unable to identify the precise species, but it's just extraordinary, isn't it? Quite. But what do you think it all means?
The good news, if you're into these games, is that the Turbo EverDrive Pro has the proper pauses in the video and the audio stays in sync. Well, as in sync as the disc does anyway, which is not perfect.
It is also quite old, and on it I found more hairs. More dog hairs? No, my dear man, monkey hairs.
This results in these titles being completely playable. There are some frames that flash and glitch here though that weren't that way on the original discs. The sound quality is mostly pretty damn good. If you go to the audio options in the options menu, you'll want to set a few things based on your console. For the preset, you'll want to set it to whatever console you have if you have the stereo expansion installed. Again, more on that in a bit. Either Core for Core Graphics or TG16 for TurboGrafx 16. While I don't have a regular PC Engine or any Core Graphics to test, the Core Graphics setting works perfectly for the Super Graphics, so I assume as long as it's not a TurboGrafx 16, it'll be fine. Another important setting here is the PCM volume. You don't want it at 100%, that's definitely too loud. I park mine at 77%. With everything set this way, the sound mixing between the CD audio, PSG, and PCM is the same as a real TurboGrafx CD. Check it out. Arcade card functionality is supported, and there's really no way to turn it off. I'd love an option to disable it, as some games are dual compatible, and that way you could see the differences. If a CD game uses the backup function, each game will get its own space and not have to share with other games, so you never have to worry about running out of save space. HuCard games that use the backup save function of a CD unit, Tinoco Bank, or Turbo Booster Plus won't be able to save. That is, unless you switch the default expansion device to CD-ROM. Then it works just fine. Of course, you may not need or want this functionality and just prefer to use save states instead. Of course, it will play SuperGrafx games if you use the Turbo EverDrive Pro on a SuperGrafx. Cheats work, and so does the in-game menu. Save states also seem to work fine on most games. So as you can see, the Turbo EverDrive Pro has lots of fantastic features, but now let's take a look at some of the downsides, some of which may be addressed by future firmware updates. At $220, the Turbo EverDrive Pro seems like it's really expensive, and honestly, it is. It's more expensive than TerraOnion's equivalent product called the Super SD System 3 by about $20 before shipping. However, it is cheaper than their Super HD System 3 Pro by over $50 before shipping. But there are a few things that you need to keep in mind before you plop down your money. First, the Turbo EverDrive Pro will not let you run CD games if you have a CD unit or a Tinoco Bank attached to the expansion slot of your system, nor will it play CD games on Duo systems. You'll still be able to play HuCard games and use cheats and save states though. That's all really too bad. It doesn't end there though. The CD audio will only be in mono if you connect to the AV jack of your system. The base TurboGrafx 16 is 100% useless with the Turbo EverDrive Pro as it only has an RF output. And when used with this EverDrive, the RF output has no audio, none at all. That's right, even for HuCard games. Check out Bonk's title screen here with the Turbo EverDrive Pro, nothing. Now, if I remove the Turbo EverDrive Pro and insert the real HuCard, I get audio from the RF connection, no problem. Krikzz, who is the individual who designs all of the EverDrives, in case you didn't know, says that the mixing circuit inside of the console is what causes this. So, you'll need an external adapter like the DB graphics booster here, which also gives RGB video and S-video. Except now, I only hear PSG sounds made by the TurboGrafx, no CD audio, not even in mono. Well, guess what that means. That's right, you need to modify your system or your expansion board to get the audio, especially if you want it in stereo. Fortunately, this is a fairly easy mod to do, and it doesn't require a lot of components. But you still need to do it or have it done if you want the full audio. Once you do have it done, just plug it in and you'll be good to go. Krikzz says that he'll offer his own adapter that's already wired. I honestly think he should have waited until that was ready before he launched the Turbo EverDrive Pro. The PCM emulation also needs a little bit of refinement. If you didn't know, the CD unit contained an extra 80 PCM audio chip to make some exciting noises, and this chip must be recreated by the Turbo EverDrive Pro. Currently, most games sound fine, but there are a few like Gate of Thunder here which can start making some odd and rather unpleasant noises. I'm sure this will be fixed in a future firmware update though, so make sure it's up to date. Also, occasionally the CD audio will begin to stutter for a bit and then it'll eventually fix itself. Hopefully this can be fixed with a future firmware update. some games like Valis 3, I do get a load error and I can't start the game. I'm sure this will be fixed soon, maybe even by the time you watch this. Next, you'll get quite a bit of noise whenever the SD card is being accessed. It's not a very quiet or pleasant noise. So, I tried a Transcend micro SD card as recommended by Firebrand X, and it is indeed a lot quieter than the Samsung or SanDisk SD cards. Not perfectly silent, but much better. So, is this my favorite flash device for the TurboGrafx/PC Engine? I like it after the AV expansion port is modded for stereo, but I prefer the Super HD System 3 Pro's video output because it can use the composite color palette, which is more accurate. Well, it's not entirely accurate as you can clearly see, but it is a step in the right direction. At the time I'm making this video, there's no other dedicated AV device that will allow that. Sadly, the Super HD System 3 Pro, I really hate that name by the way, won't let you play SuperGrafx when it's hooked up to a real SuperGrafx unless you turn off the SuperGrafx's capabilities. If you try, it's all glitchy like this. And the audio output of the Super HD System 3 Pro is really low, at least when you're hooking it up in analog, which is how I prefer to hook it up. I definitely like the frequency of Krikzz firmware updates compared to the rather slow output of TerraOnion. Not only that, but the firmware updates are extremely simple for anyone to grab. TerraOnion hides theirs behind the login and the firmware is directly tied to your specific product. I think no matter which way you choose to play, you'll be sacrificing something, and nothing is the perfect solution, at least not yet. The fact that you need to mod or buy something extra just to get stereo audio will definitely deter many people, as it should. Same with not working fully on Duo consoles. Duo owners always get the shaft. But hey, who knows what the future holds. So, do I think the Turbo EverDrive Pro is worth $220? For me, yes I do. For you? Well, that's a question only you can answer based on the information that's available. Personally, I do like the save states and the cheat modes, and the CD games seem to run pretty good after everything's been modded and stuff. Plus, I like using my actual SuperGrafx hardware to play SuperGrafx games. But man, that RGB color palette is really tough to go back to. Of course, if you play games in composite, then this is a non-issue for you. Anyway, what are your thoughts? Let me know. In the meantime, thank you for watching GameSack. Hey, can you spell TurboGrafx? Most people mangle it pretty badly when they attempt to do so. In fact, it's honestly kind of sad. But thanks to the marketing department over at NEC, people just don't get it. But there is a really cool trick that even people with hollow skulls like you and I can remember. You of course have heard of special effects, right? That's often abbreviated as SFX. The effects standing for effects. Or how about the Super Effects chip in Star Fox for the Super Nintendo? You see where I'm going? And that's what they meant to do with this is, it's a console with lots of cool graphical effects. FX, TurboGrafx. You just gotta learn.